The first time Lily fainted, Elena told herself it was just dehydration. Kids run hard, play harder, and forget to drink water, especially 6-year-olds with untied shoelaces and 1,000 questions. But when it happened the second time during story time at the library, Elena knew it wasn't a fluke. And the third time on the school steps. Face pale, eyes fluttering, it was straight to the ER. The fluorescent lights, the buzz of machines, the waiting room coffee that tasted like paper, it all blurred. Hours passed. A nurse took Lily's blood. A doctor asked about symptoms. Elena tried to remember every cough, every bruise that took too long to fade. Then came the diagnosis, a rare blood condition. Not fatal if caught early, but the treatment plan was aggressive, immediate, and impossibly expensive. Elena, the protocol costs around $90,000, the specialist explained gently. It's a high success rate if we start now. Elena blinked. $90,000, the insurance rep came in an hour later. Policies, percentages, deductibles. They'd cover 30%. Maybe, if all went well. If the wind blew just right. Elena walked into the hallway and sat on the cold bench. Her hands trembled. $90,000. Her bank account had $1,280.34. Rent was due. Her freelance clients had dried up. Her parents, they had money. They always had money. She looked at Lily through the glass door, asleep in a tiny bed with cartoon blankets. Elena took out her phone and stared at her mother's number. It used to be on speed dial. She hit call, voicemail. She tried her father, straight to voicemail too. She sat there silent, the phone still in her hand. The doctor's voice replayed in her mind. It's treatable. She thought about that word. Not curable, not guaranteed, treatable. If you can pay, if someone believes it's urgent enough, if you're not alone in it, if your parents don't think you're exaggerating. They said it was treatable with money. But what if you're broke and your parents think you're exaggerating? Elena hadn't been back to the lake house in nearly 2 years. Not since Christmas, the year her mother complained the whole dinner that Lily's jacket looked too used, and her father suggested Elena should try working in tech like Ben. But now she stood on their polished porch, holding her breath as she rang the bell. Marlene opened the door in a cashmere sweater and Pearl's wine glass in hand. "Oh," she said as if surprised. "You could have called first." "I did," Elena replied softly. Charles appeared in the foyer, still in his golf shoes. "Everything all right? I need to talk to you both," Elena said. Her voice cracked. "It's about Lily." They sat in the living room, white couches, white walls, white silence. Elena explained everything. The fainting, the tests, the diagnosis, the urgency, the $90,000. Her father swirled the ice in his tumbler. $90,000. Her mother's brows rose. "And insurance only covers part of it." Elena nodded. "I don't have that kind of money. I've tried everything." Marlene cut her off. "Sweetheart, you can't expect us to fix this. I'm not asking you to fix anything. I'm asking you to help save your granddaughter." Charles stood and walked toward the window. "Elena, you've made choices. You left a stable job. You had Lily with a man we barely knew. Actions have consequences." Marlene set her glass down. "Maybe it's time to accept things. Sometimes. You just have to let go." Elena sat still, her breath caught behind her ribs. "She's 6, her mother sighed. "We can't just throw money at your problems every time you come crying." "I've never asked you for anything," Elena said, her voice sharp now. "Not once." Marlene waved her off. "It's not about the money, darling. It's about boundaries." Elena stood up. "Not a hug, not a promise, not even a fake. We'll think about it. Just boundaries." She walked out without another word. The lake outside sparkled under the afternoon sun. It looked peaceful, but it had no heart. Neither did the people inside. They had the funds. They just didn't think my daughter was worth it. 3 weeks passed. Lily's treatments had started barely thanks to a community fund and a payment plan. Elena could only pray wouldn't collapse. The in-laws were helping where they could, selling old equipment from their bakery and borrowing against retirement. Every day felt like balancing on a thread. Then the envelope arrived, thick, cream-colored, embossed with gold leaf. Elena opened it slowly, half expecting a letter from the hospital or insurance. But no, this was a wedding invitation. Ben Price and Savannah Whitmore. Join us for a celebration of love and family. Saturday, May 14th. Linden Estate Vineyard. Enclosed was a scheduled welcome dinner, private brunch, fireworks show. A map with helicopter landing options. Notes on the black tie dress code. And a handwritten note from Marlene: Hope, you and Lily can make it. We'd love to see you both if she's feeling up for it. Elena stared at it, unmoving. She scrolled through Savannah's Instagram later that night. Photos of flower samples, dress fittings, cake tastings. Captions like mom-in-law making magic happen. $250K wedding. It hit her like a punch to the chest. Her parents hadn't just moved on, they were celebrating. She thought back to the day at the lake house. $90,000 had been too much. But imported orchids flown from Amsterdam. That was reasonable. Private chefs for 200 guests. Sure. Helicopter views of the Hudson Valley. Of course. And somehow Lily, barely stabilized from her first round of meds, was supposed to show up in a borrowed dress and smile for photos. Elena closed the app. Her hands were shaking. There was no space in that vineyard for reality. No chairs reserved for the child they nearly left to die. Just polished glassware, glowing string lights, and families staged for perfection. She didn't RSVP. She didn't even tell Lily. Some events weren't meant to be attended. They couldn't spare $90K to save a life, but $250K for a party. That was a once-in-a-lifetime memory. The day Elena broke down on the Morales couch, she didn't mean to say anything. She'd come to drop off Lily so she could get some freelance work done. Something small to chip away at the medical bills. But Carmen had made tea. Frank had turned off the TV, and somehow the truth spilled out. All of it. The diagnosis, the treatment costs, the way Charles and Marlene looked at her like she'd asked for a handout, not help. Carmen sat beside her and held her hand, her thumb gently brushing over Elena's knuckles. Frank didn't say anything right away. He disappeared into the back room. When he returned, he handed Carmen a worn-out manila folder. She opened it, glanced through, then nodded. "We're selling the bakery," Frank said. Elena blinked. "No, absolutely not. You can't." "We can," Carmen said. "We already spoke to a buyer last week." Elena's breath caught. "But why? That place is your life." Frank smiled, soft and steady. "Lily is our life," Carmen added. "We'd rather live in a shoebox apartment than wake up every day knowing we didn't try." Elena sat there in stunned silence. They had no beachfront house, no investment portfolio, no country club membership. Just hands rough from flower backs, sore from early mornings, and hearts too big for their own good. 3 weeks later, the bakery closed. A thank you sign was taped on the front window. They moved into a one-bedroom over a laundromat and handed Elena a check that covered the hospital's initial treatment schedule. No ceremony, no expectation. Lily's treatments began the next day. The specialist moved faster. The meds started taking effect. Her color returned. One night, as Elena tucked her in, Lily whispered, "Grandma Carmen said they sold the donut place so I could get better." Elena kissed her forehead, blinking back tears. "They did, baby, because love doesn't count dollars." They were never rich, but that day, they gave us everything they had, including time. Lily's body was still fragile, but her laughter was coming back. She asked for ice cream again. She started drawing again, mostly animals in capes and nurses with wings. Every day that she ate a full meal or walked across the room without wobbling felt like a miracle stitched together with worry and gratitude. Elena lived in borrowed time. Hospital visits in the morning, freelance projects at night, online classes in between. She worked from waiting rooms, made pitch calls from parking lots, and graded classmates' discussion posts at 2 a.m. Some nights she cried quietly in the shower so Lily wouldn't hear. One afternoon during Lily's infusion, Elena mindlessly opened her social media. A new post from her mother's sunsets in Santorini, with my forever man. # blessed life. Elena stared at the photo. Her father holding a glass of white wine, her mother beaming in a linen jumpsuit. The Mediterranean sun dipped behind them like a movie scene. She scrolled, there were more. Photos from Tuscany, a gala in New York, Savannah and Ben's honeymoon suite with champagne flutes and rose petals. Not once had they asked how Lily was doing. The next day a cousin called. "I don't want to stir the pot," she began. "But your mom said you've been cold to the family, that you're refusing help out of pride." Elena clenched her jaw. "Help? They said you were dramatic about Lily, that you twisted things. They're hurt, Elena, hurt." Her parents had vanished when things got hard, refused to lift a finger, and now they were sipping wine on cliffsides while telling everyone she'd overreacted. Elena hung up before she said something she'd regret. That night she looked through old photo albums, ones from her childhood. Birthday parties where Ben got the big gifts, recitals where her father left early. She remembered now. This wasn't new, just louder. They hadn't just turned their backs. They'd edited the story and made sure she looked like the problem. They didn't just cut me off. They rewrote the story with me as the villain. The day of the wedding arrived like any other gray skies, a drizzle tapping the apartment windows. Elena brewed instant coffee in the kitchen corner while Lily played with her hospital bear, now dressed in a tutu made from an old sock. The invite had long been tossed in the trash, but she couldn't avoid the flood online. The first photo came from Savannah's page, her in a pearl-studded gown that looked like it belonged in a museum. $30,000 of imported silk and hand-stitched lace, her caption read. Then came Marlene's post. "Our hearts are full. Our son's new chapter begins in joy." Elena scrolled through image after image. Ben smiling like a celebrity. Her father in a tailored tux, her mother with champagne in hand, glowing like the queen of a world Elena was never truly allowed into. Not a single mention of Lily. Not a whisper of where Elena had been. No "we miss you" or "wish you were here," just curated bliss. Even distant relatives posted pictures with hashtags like #PricePerfection and #FairyTaleWedding. One aunt tagged Elena by mistake. The comment read, "So sad you couldn't be there. Hope everything's okay with your little girl." Elena didn't reply. That night she bathed Lily and braided her damp hair. They shared leftovers from Carmen's kitchen. Before bed, Lily looked up and asked, "Do I get to wear a dress like that someday?" Elena smiled. "Only if you want to. You'll get to choose." Once Lily drifted off, Elena sat in the dark with her phone. She opened her contacts. Her mother, her father, Ben, aunts, uncles, cousins. One by one she deleted every name that had watched her beg and walked away. Every number that praised a wedding but ignored a hospital bed. She didn't cry, not anymore. There were no champagne glasses in her hand, no roses or string lights, just the sound of her daughter's steady breathing, and the quiet peace of a choice finally made. They toasted champagne. I watched my daughter sleep alive without them. The apartment in Boston had tall windows, scuffed hardwood, and a ceramic dish by the door, where Elena dropped her keys every evening. She'd made it herself during a beginner's pottery class, the kind of quiet hobby she never had time for before. Her design studio had grown from a freelance side hustle into a full agency with 8 employees. They worked with nonprofit, sustainable brands and startups led by women who reminded Elena of the version of herself that once had nothing but grit. Lily was 11 now, bold, curious, obsessed with marine biology. Her last checkup had been clean. Her doctor called her a miracle. Elena just called her Lily. Life wasn't glamorous, but it was rich in the ways that mattered. Until the message arrived. It came from a number she hadn't seen in years, Marlene Price. "Elena, your father and I need to talk. It's important." Elena stared at the screen. Another message followed. "We made some bad investments. The market turned. We've lost most of our retirement fund. We may need to sell the house. Can we come see you?" There it was. The same number that had sent party invites and holiday cards soaked in curated joy. The same voice that once said, "We can't just throw money at your problems." now broken, now soft. She didn't reply right away. She made dinner, tucked Lily in, sat on the floor beside her bookshelf. Then she picked up the phone and reread the message. They'd gambled their future away chasing profits. Now they wanted shelter in the life she'd built from dust and bone and second chances. She didn't feel hate, just distance. She set the phone down without typing a word. Some calls didn't need returning. Some silences said everything. The same number that once told me no was now asking if I had space. The drive to Connecticut was quiet. No music, just the hum of tires against pavement and the occasional question in Elena's mind she already knew the answer to. She hadn't planned to go. But something about the message stuck. Not guilt, but curiosity, not for what they wanted, but who they'd become without everything. The condo complex was beige boxy and forgettable. Unit 3C had peeling numbers on the door. She knocked. Marlene opened it. She looked older, smaller somehow. The pearls were gone, replaced by a faded sweatshirt and slippers that had seen better years. Elena, she breathed, pulling her in for a hug. Elena didn't return. You look strong. Inside, the furniture was mismatched. A card table stood where a dining set used to. The air smelled like reheated stew and lavender. Charles emerged from the hallway, a cane in hand, eyes weary. We're glad you came. Elena sat on the edge of the couch. Marlene brought tea in chipped mugs. They spoke in fragments. How's Lily? How's work? Are you seeing anyone? Then finally, Charles cleared his throat. We made mistakes. Elena didn't speak. We were wrong, he added. Back then. About everything. Marlene looked at her eyes glossed. We've lost a lot, but losing you? That was the hardest. Elena sipped her tea. It was bitter. She stood. No, Marlene said quickly, voice rising. Please don't go yet. Elena set the cup down carefully. I didn't come here to argue, she said softly, or to heal anything. I just needed to see it with my own eyes. Charles stepped forward. Isn't there a way back? Elena met his gaze. There was. You walked past it 5 years ago. At the door, she paused, looking around the small, dim space. It felt like a museum of decisions they'd made with their backs turned. Marlene whispered, Can't you forgive us? Elena smiled faintly. Forgiveness isn't owed, especially not to people who never paid the cost. Then she left. They thought regret would buy forgiveness, but I don't sell what I earned. The house sat at the edge of a quiet neighborhood just outside Boston. Nothing extravagant, but solid, warm, and welcoming. 2 bedrooms, a deep front porch with rocking chairs, and a garden box waiting to be filled. It had been a foreclosure Elena found months ago, renovated slowly between projects, painting walls at midnight and replacing fixtures on weekends. Now she stood in the driveway with Lily bouncing beside her, a helium balloon tugging at her wrist. Frank and Carmen walked toward them, both a little confused, both wearing their usual layers, just in case Boston's wind changed its mind again. Frank looked at the sold sign and then back at Elena. You're moving. Elena smiled and held out the keys. No, you are. Carmen blinked. What? This house is yours, Elena said gently. Bought and paid, taxes included. It's yours. Frank didn't speak. He stared at the keys like they might vanish. Carmen's hands went to her mouth. Elena, no. This is why would you? Because 5 years ago when I had nothing, you gave me everything. When my own parents shut the door, you opened yours. This is just me leaving one open for you. They stepped inside together and Carmen cried before they even made it past the entryway. The floors gleamed. The windows caught the afternoon light. On the kitchen counter sat a welcome basket and a photo of Lily as a toddler, powdered sugar all over her face, holding a donut nearly as big as her head. Frank picked it up, shaking his head slowly. I remember this day. That was the last batch we made before closing the bakery. Elena nodded. And you still smiled that day. You showed me what family was. Later, Lily pulled out a can of red paint from her backpack. Grandpa said red's lucky, so I brought some. She painted the dented old mailbox out front, humming while Carmen snapped photos through happy tears. Frank stood quietly, arms crossed, watching her. He didn't say much. He didn't have to. This wasn't repayment. It was inheritance of love, of loyalty, of a name that had nothing to do with bloodlines. They weren't just in-laws, they were legacy paid for in love, not blood. The letter came folded into a cream envelope, the kind her mother used for holiday cards and dinner invites. No return address this time. Just Charles and Marlene written in her mother's handwriting, still neat, still rehearsed. Elena stood by the mailbox in the drizzle, reading it under gray skies. Elena, we're sorry, we've had time to reflect. We know we failed you and Lily, we want to do better. We want to know her, we hope it's not too late. Please write back. No mention of the hospital rooms, no mention of Lily's name in those terrifying first months. No, we should have helped. Just soft generalities cloaked in fragile hope. She walked inside, boots leaving faint marks on the entry rug. Lily was curled up on the couch with a blanket and a graphic novel, her hair damp from the rain, cheeks flushed. She grinned when she saw her. We still going to Grandpa Frank's this weekend? Of course, Elena said, smiling back. We promise cookies and a new bird feeder. That night after Lily was asleep, Elena sat at her desk. She opened a drawer she hadn't touched in years, the one with Lily's treatment papers. She pulled out the final report, completed protocol, full response, no detectable recurrence. 6 words that had changed her life. She ran her fingers over the page like it was written in gold. The next day she framed it in a black walnut border and hung it just above her monitor. Not out of spite, but remembrance. She had built a business, a home, a life beneath those numbers. Every client she helped, every design she sent into the world, it all began with that moment of survival. She wrote her reply slowly. This isn't about revenge, it's about memory. I remember being told no. I remember the silence that followed. I remember who gave when it hurt and who vanished when it mattered. She didn't sign it with love, just her name, sharp, clean, full. Then she mailed it. No explanation, no follow-up, just a quiet end to a story she had outgrown. Later that week, she watched Lily chase birds across a park lawn, Carmen laughing in the background, Frank holding a camera he barely knew how to use. The photo he took, blurry and perfect, became the new centerpiece on Elena's wall. They chose a wedding over her life. I chose silence over revenge, and built a life without the minute.